You know, I think about this quite a bit. I feel that like our natural, we have this kind of meme that like, I think it's based on a lot of like romantic look at like the 50s and like that era, and that we're these straight-laced, well-behaved, moderate people that if left to our own devices will, you know, behave ourselves and follow laws and like all that. And yeah, I think maybe some of that's true, but it's like I that's not my experience. You know what I mean? Like growing up,
we are not at all moderate. We are extreme. You know, English and Germanic people, sort of cut you off there, Dave. And Americans, we are fucking extremists. That's why we are cutting our dicks off. That's why we are the ones inviting the world into our countries. This is not a moderate position. This is the most fucking liberalism is the most extreme ideology in the history of the world. This is why we have it, right? It's because we're these fucking extremists. It's like we're not straight-laced at all. I like this comes from a kind of like a backwards looking view of like Victorian society or something like that. But, you know, I don't know.
But even then,
to me,
those people weren't well behaved. Like listen to the Christmas carols, right? We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry. What is it? In the one part they go, now bring us some figgy pudding. Now, what you know what they're talking
you can hear them like stomping on the fucking on the fucking floor, right?
What they're talking about with bring us some figgy pudding is that these guys were a bunch of drunk hooligans out at Christmas time singing Christmas carols, and what they're saying is bring us some fucking treats or we're gonna trash your house because we're a bunch of fucking drunk maniacs.
We won't go until we get some.
We won't go until we get some, so bring it right here, bitch. We're fucking getting rowdy. And this is like, you know, I can't tell you. And you know, this is something that burns in my mind, and this is just like the behavior of like young white men versus young black men. Is I always thought like it was weird that like, because there's like the thing that like, you know, blacks are the way that they are, et cetera, et cetera. But when they get around us, they're like, you guys don't act right. I can't be around you guys. You guys are fucking too much. This is too crazy for me. They do. And it's like, it's not just in our, like how we are. It's like, we just like do bad shit for the sake of bad. You guys listening, when you guys were young men, when you and your boys started drinking, especially the brown liquor, what happened? You went out and did some bad kid shit just for the sake of it. Just because you're a fucking rowdy maniac. Just because you're a hooligan. In your heart, in your soul, you are a hooligan. And the one thing that like sticks in my mind is I remember there's this I remember looking on Facebook a while back, and I was like, you know, 23 or something. I'm looking at my friends' pictures of when they have these like house parties and they're like fucking around and stuff. And I literally like picture after picture. I like the first picture was one of my buddies. This is rowdy young guy stuff, but he's like sitting on this toilet, and he's sitting on this toilet. He's got no clothes on. He's got his pecker tucked in like under the toilet seat, so it looks like he's got no dick. Yeah. And he's like got this weird look on his face, and like all his boys are standing around laughing, hooting and hollering, pointing at him. And there's this like black dude like peering over the crowd with this like horror on his face. And there's this other one, and there's these two guys, and they're wearing like they're like in their underpants, but they're like wearing like ladies garments, like they have like bras on and stuff, and they're fist fighting, and they're like bleeding from the face, and they're like all drunk, bloody, wearing these like complete fucking nutty stuff. And there's a black dude sitting in the back, like with his legs like tight together, like holding his hands, like this is like he's like really uncomfortable.
He's like, these white niggas is buck wild, right? Like,
y'all don't act right, nigga. Y'all crazy as hell. Like, fuck wrong with you, boy? Like,
yeah, exactly.
That was like, you know, that's just like what comes to my mind. That's white boy shit. Is to act wild. You know what I mean? And it's just like,
well,
way that we
It's
are.
interesting. It's interesting that you mention it in the context of like blacks, because it's kind of, doesn't it seem weird that like Europeans and Africans are like could not be more different, like phenotypically and in a lot of ways, but yet white people fucking love rap. Why is that? Why do you think that is? Well, it's because, I mean, I think the proximal sort of explanation is that blacks and Europeans are similar enough in one way that they kind of see eye to eye. We're not the same, but we do have this in common, is that we're both fucking savages at heart. Like we are, like just in our like ancestral sort of like how we came up as basically like tribal savages. This is something that we share, right? And we like that. We like that about hip hop. We like that about rap, is that it's very masculine. It's got this sort of unhinged quality to it. It's got this dangerous quality to it. Like, just like the whole like ethnic and cultural background of being from the hood and like a dangerous place. Have you listened to Academic Agent's recent like thing
Czarface?
Czarface, yeah.
I have not. I missed it.
It's pretty cool, yeah. I hopefully it's still up on YouTube. But anyway, he talks about this, them being from like a very dangerous background and how we can't really relate to that because basically it's a thing for African Americans and it's just what they have or whatever. But there's a deeper sense in which that we do actually kind of like understand each other in a way that like, Chinese people and people from like, I don't know, Mesoamerica may not quite understand see eye to eye on, but there's a reason why whites and blacks both like hip hop and whites grabbed us. It's not just that we're ethnomasochistic or whatever, or that we love the outsider, we love the other. It's that, but it's also because there's something there between us. There's something in common. And I think there actually is a way to kind of also understand this in like a even deeper way through the Odinic and Tyric, right? So basically, what you've got is these like two paradigm, or these two categories, these two parts of our folk soul, shall we say. And I think that these actually they have pre-Indo-European origins. Basically, the Odinic is very much more of a hunter-gatherer kind of theological paradigm. And the Tyric is more of a farmer or agriculturalist paradigm. So basically, hunter-gatherers have more of a like shamanic or an animist theological paradigm for the most part. And by shamanic, what I mean is an ecstatic participation in the divine, right? Like there's no such thing as shamanic religion. It's a paradigm within a religion. But the shamanic is participatory, so the shaman will take part in the divine. It's initiatory, so he enters into it, and it's ecstatic. There's a kind of outsideness to it. Speaking of outsideness, there's a kind of standing outside of oneself in the normal order of reality. So the Odinic has these elements, these shamanic elements, I would say. It's participatory in that in Odinic cults, you literally take on the shape of the god. Right, like the Norse wolf cults, the Odin cults would like wear masks to depict themselves as the god or the totemic animal, like the wolf. There was an ancient Baltic tribe. Now the Balts are also a very Odinic people. There's an ancient tribe of theirs called the Nuri that's described by Herodotus, where once a year some of them would become a wolf for a few days and change back to a man. So there's and you could think of the Roman Lupercalia. This is basically a celebration where a brotherhood of feral youths would assemble and like take on the appearance of wolves and run through the city. So basically you become the god, you become the animal. There's a sense in which you participate in the divine. This is an important part of the shamanic religion.
You're listening to an episode of the latest Culture Dads, Age of Sword and Cassette. If you like what you hear and want more, head on over to culturedads.com for podcasts every week.
This is an important part of the shamanic religion. It's also initiatory, like Odinic wolf cults were initiatory. Indian society didn't really have this wolf cult, but they did have the mythical Gandharvas that represented the same thing, and it was an initiatory brotherhood as well, just similar to the, the Odinic. and it was ecstatic, right? Like the Odinic is speaking of ecstasy, and what we did in the last episode. The intoxicants are involved, right? There's an altered state of consciousness involved in the Odinic. Odin steals the meat of poetry. The Indian Gandharvas steal the soma plant and then gain the power of music to play the ragas, right? So what characterizes the Odinic is fundamentally what characterizes the same thing as shamanic practices. And the Tyric is more of a cultic paradigm. It's more ritualistic and earthbound. It's tied to a place. It's inherited rather than being initiated. It's something you're born into. It's ritualistic, so it's very formulaic. It's very much about blood and soil and following this formula or command-based imperative type religious paradigm. So anyway, what you can kind of see is that the people who are like the peoples within the Indo-Europeans who are the most Odinic. So we're talking about like the Germanics, and especially the Nordics, but we're also talking about maybe the Celts and the Balts as well. These are the peoples who have the most Western hunter-gatherer genetic component in them, right? And the people who are the most Tyric, the most like sedentary or like ancestor cult-like, are the people who have the most early European farmer genetic component. We're talking about like the Romans, the Greeks, and especially the Indians, although, they don't have earlier European farmer. They have Indus Valley, which is another very urbanized people. So what I'm getting at here is that if what characterizes the Odinic is a kind of like deep prehistory, an ancestral history of hunter-gathererness, shall we say, we have that in common with Africans. And so there's a manner in which we can, there's a common ground that we have with them that we don't have with every other people, right? So I think that this kind of like explains in a more deep and ancestral way why it is that, we can understand each other. We like some of the same music and whites kind of like blues earlier in the 20th century and black music, and they've always liked black music. And it also kind of explains why we're even too much for them, right? Because like we're those fucking savage tribes that were like genociding each other on a regular basis, and that's even too much for Jamal, right? So there you go.
I can't. There's so many examples in my head that I remember, like the white boys getting too wild. Just come to my. I remember this one time. We're at this. We literally just like threw a party in this like abandoned kind of. It was like sort of a garage thing on this dude's property that was just sort of had drywall and shit in it, but it was like falling apart. And we just like we went to this dude's house because we were boys with his kids. And we threw a party in this like barn thing, right? And like a ton of people showed up, like a bunch of people, and it was like it was mostly white people, mostly white guys like me that were there. But there was like a couple black dudes, there's like a couple Asian dudes or whatever, and literally. Like we're like the white dudes are like we're taking shots, we're getting hype. It's summer, so we got our shirts off. We're sweaty. We're like we're fucking. We were getting a little wild. And then one of my boys comes running in. He found this like pole it was like at a flat bottom. It was like to stamp down, to flatten out soil or something, right? It's this big heavy piece of metal. He comes just fucking tearing in and just blasts a hole in the wall with it and just like smashes it. And this was like chum in the water, right? We just went fucking bonkers. So we started like just taking turns, screaming and smashing holes in this fucking wall. All of the colored people left. Like my one dude who's the Asian guy, Cambodian guy, he's like, dude, you guys are this is getting too crazy. He's like, you guys are gonna start like drinking blood or something. I fucking bounce. And then we look around and it's like everybody that's not white is gone. And we just chimped out for the rest of the night. And then we had this big battle in the field, like doing like karate fucking battle royale. And I passed out under a pine tree in my underwear.
You're listening to an episode of the latest Culture Dads, Age of Sword and Cassette, where two fathers and community leaders discuss modern culture from a timeless perspective. If you like what you hear and you want more, Head on over to culturedads.com for podcasts every week.